Star Trek Picard Episode 2 is out, and I've got to say, cards on the table, I thought this was just as good as the previous. Hi, Rick here with the review and lore dive on Maps and Legends. I'm going to discuss spoiler-free thoughts, but then get into the nitty-gritty details pretty soon, so if you've not seen Picard yet, I'll let you know when to get off this 145-year-old shuttle taxi. Alright then, if last episode was world building to cover the 20-year gap from the end of Nemesis, this is more establishing the current climate and powers at play here. There is surprisingly little action in this episode, aside from a flashback scene set on Mars, which is confirmed as 2385, 1 year or less before the supernova in Romulan space. This means that the rest of the episode's 43-minute runtime, which is really a lot less once you factor in the credits and recap, is dialogue reliant. It's a mixed bag, but mostly on the positive. There are a couple of lines that stand out as too hurriedly written and obvious concerning sci-fi and tea, but generally everything flows well. We spend a lot of time this episode delving into the narrative on the Romulan artifact reclamation site, and following the trail Picard uncovered last time on Earth. Soji, Daj's sister, is getting a much slower paced development here as well, and we're really presented with a sense of life as a researcher aboard this potentially still malevolent terror box of assimilating metal. I wonder how long this cube has been inactive for. Clearly long enough for people to make jokes about the Borg and sleep aboard it. Nothing could possibly go wrong. The supporting Romulans, Laris and Zarbon, get some development here that expands on their history together, pre-Picard, as covered in their prequel comic. And this is good, as not everyone is going to follow these. In fact, most won't. Laris in particular is a joy to watch, as well as Narek, who clearly has ulterior motives. Both these two, quite separately, play on old Romulan stereotypes of being arrogant and secretive, and it's fun to see these traits with a more jovial edge. We also get to see just why Starfleet refuses to help Picard, and it's a little jarring, especially with an unnecessary curse word thrown in, at least I thought so, but events continue that calm the qualms I had been brewing. I do worry though about the low runtime, as this seems to be accelerating an otherwise slow-paced investigative mystery in places, with one instance of finding the MacGuffin in seconds so we didn't have to waste time searching for hours. Not that big of an issue, but I hope it doesn't become a frequent trend. All in all, I enjoy this episode, and it's taken its time where it can to establish itself, and the new characters being introduced are growing on me. If this continues, it may end up as one of my favourite Star Trek story arcs from the shows. And I say story arcs and not a series, as at 10 episodes, this is what it feels like. Moving on to the lore sections, complete with spoilers now, so let's take a look at some mentions. 2385 is when the androids turned on their organic colleagues, and we clearly see that there is some sort of activation or signal that triggers them. Their uncanny valley stares and lack of humour, a tough concept for an android to grasp, shows that although clearly based on Maddox's Soong-styled work, they are miles behind Data and Lore's sophistication. Even B4 showed curiosity. It looks like this was not some sort of revolt on their behalf, as they seem to perhaps even lack self-determination. It looks like the surface of Mars is perhaps a mining facility of some description, while in orbit we get to see a lot of new starships and large shuttles. We get a passing line that confirms Geordi LaForge did survive the attack, which is just as well, as he was assigned to oversee construction of the Romulan evacuation fleet. On visiting Starfleet, everything feels very true to nostalgia, maybe with a new veneer on it, until Picard begins to interact with it. From the receptionist who doesn't recognise the former hero to the Admiral Clancy's office, it's clear he has fallen behind the times during his self-imposed exile. I feel pretty bad for Picard, who was frankly asking a lot of the Admiralty when clearly he was trying to appeal to the rule of an admiral. I get the feeling that Starfleet and the Federation isn't as dystopian as others are making out, and we learn that they were being pressured by 14 Federation members to not waste resources on Romulus. Who they are remains unnamed, and that they did in fact lose the rescue fleet anyway during the synth attack. So the order was given to abandon the project while the Federation turns inward to see to its own issues, and Starfleet as an extension of this stands down from its rescue endeavours. Also, this Admiral Clancy really doesn't like Picard, and arguably she has a point. He did resign in protest and outwardly criticise Starfleet on the FNN just days ago. I still hate her for it, but that bridge has clearly been burnt. One thing I'm not big on is the reveal of the Zhat Vash. This is an even more secretive wing of the Romulan Empire, buried deep underneath even the Tal Shiar. Its name is based on the old term for the dead, and its purpose is to oppose artificial intelligence wherever it may surface, which is also used to explain why the Romulan Star Empire never used anything like AI or sentient holograms. I always assumed they just weren't interested. I get it though. The Tal Shiar has been widely demystified in Star Trek, and too associated with the regime of the Empire, which we learn now may have collapsed or undergone a radical shift, as the Romulan Free State is mentioned in passing. The Free State seems to be the new government in Romulan space, and from the name and the fact that they are allowing foreign researchers onto a Borg cube, they seem to be trying to be a little more cooperative with its neighbouring powers. I wonder if it was a smooth transition, or more like it was depicted in Star Trek Online as a schism mostly between military and civilian sectors, splintered after the supernova. As for why the Romulans are interested in a Borg cube, well, even Starfleet has a cautious curiosity for Borg tech with how advanced it is, and we can't forget that the Romulans became aware of the Borg around the same time as the Federation did. In the Neutral Zone episode of TNG, the Romulans and Federation were losing settlements along the border, and eventually it was revealed that the Borg were assimilating them. Plus, with the location of Romulan space in the Beta Quadrant, and not fully charted, it's actually more likely that they were encountering the Borg at times too. I look forwards to the development on both these plots. Picard gets a health checkup from an old Stargazer friend who reveals that Picard's potential to develop Irumodic syndrome is still present, and that his frustrations and bad dreams may be early symptoms. Again, another old plot thread marking this series as one for TNG fans, and I'm curious to see if there's anyone watching Picard who hasn't seen The Next Generation, and how they're keeping up with all of these kind of important plot threads. The last thing I want to mention is... Oh, hang on, your phone is ringing. You need to answer it, because I called it. There most definitely is a malevolent power at play within the Federation, with the Zhat Vash having infiltrated Starfleet through Commodore O and her staff. O herself seems to be a Vulcan, but may too be a Romulan imposter, as her subordinate is. I am concerned that they seem to have revealed all the villains of this piece early, but hopefully that means there's more twists to come. We'll have to see where their end goal lies, and the extent of Admiral Clancy, and therefore Starfleet's involvement with them. But I'm betting that they are the ones who triggered their synthetic attack on Mars to get them removed from the Federation, before manipulating events to get the ban in place. It could be argued that Starfleet is still equally guilty in losing its utopian values, but it's far easier for that to occur when those who steer the Federation are listening to such individuals as the Zhat Vash. So, there we have it. My review and analysis of Picard's Episode 2. It did have some flaws, caused by the short run time, but overall they weren't large enough to detract from my enjoyment. Thanks for watching, and let me know how you think this fares against the prior episode, and how do you feel about the Federation now? I'll probably see you next time for another lore and review of Picard. Till then, thanks again, and goodbye.